Welcome to Mondays with Maxwell. My name is Mark Cole. I'm the president and CEO of the John Maxwell Leadership Enterprise. I believe every one of you watching this right now is just like John. You welcome Mondays because you look forward to starting your week off looking for ways to value people. And since today is Monday, my friends, let's hear from the man of the hour. He is our leader, our friend, John C. Maxwell.
Hey, John Maxwell here. Welcome to Mondays with Maxwell. I'm delighted to again share with you in our Best Advice series. Everywhere I go, I run into people who say, John, thanks for that series. Every Monday, I look forward to picking up a nugget that will just be good advice for my life, or maybe good advice for my team, good advice for my children. And so take this and pass it on. And again, we start off with Andrew, our humorous sage on advice. Here's one he gave me. My wise old grandfather once told me, if you want people to listen to your advice, just claim it's something your wise old grandfather once told you. When Andrew, when you gave that to me, I'm thinking that isn't it true, especially in American culture, if you say Mark Twain said something, or Ben Franklin said something, or maybe Will Rogers said something, there's about a half a dozen. If you just throw those names out there, in this case, my wise old grandfather, that advice carries a lot more weight than just if it comes from you or me. So thanks, Andrew, we just love having you give us your humorous best advice. And my best advice is part 2 of what I started last Monday. So if you didn't catch last Monday, you may want to go back to that first. And the advice is to surround yourself with great people. I mean, just think about it for a moment before I go back to lesson 1 and review. Is there anything better than maybe to have a dinner with wonderful people that you greatly admire? I mean, to me, my greatest moments are with people that are making a difference. I love to sit down and talk with them and listen to them and share. It just always makes me better. So when I talk about surrounding yourself with great people, last Monday, I shared 3 parts of that. And let me just give them to you. If you really want to surround yourself with great people, number 1, have a great desire to become great. Number 2, go to where great people are. Number 3, do what great people do. Now I've caught you up with, now we're coming into the 4th thing if you really want to surround yourself with great people, and that is be unforgettable. Let's talk about that for a moment. Be unforgettable. Jack Welch, in our conversations before he passed away, he had an expression that, get out of the people pile. In other words, in every company over an organization, there's just a pile of people. How do you distinguish yourself? How do you set yourself apart? How does that happen? How do you become unforgettable? And I can tell you that all of my life, I've really worked hard in trying myself to be an unforgettable person. And there are certain things that just kind of help me do that. For example, let me just give you one practical one, and that is do for others what they cannot do for themselves. In other words, just very simply ask yourself, what can I do for that person that they really probably don't do for themselves? I can remember when I was a very young leader, Bill Bright, who was the founder of Campus Crusade for Christ at that time, that was their name, where they just absolutely involved campus kids around the world to share their faith. And it was just truly one of the influential people in especially the faith world. I had a good friend, Ron Jensen, who was kind of his right-hand person. Ron was very young, a little bit older than me, but not much, about my age. And so Ron traveled the world with Bill Bright. And Ron and I would get together, and he would tell me stories about Bill Bright and where he was. And I had I'm just a kid. I had such a desire to know him. And one time I was invited to go on a meeting and be with Ron, who was going to be with Bill Bright. And of course, he didn't know who I was. But I look for my moment. I look for my moment to share something with him that would just help him, that would add value to them. It wasn't truly a moment. It was less than a minute, but I said something. I said, Dr. Bright, just a thought. I wanted to give it to you. And he stopped for a moment. He said, that's good. I like that thought. And I said, well, if you want me to, I'll write it down for you and I'll give it to Ron and he'll have it. He said, would you do that? I said, yes. And on another occasion, maybe a few months later, I could go to another meeting. And again, I thought, okay, now what can I again give to him and provide for him? And I looked for my moment. I wasn't the star. Again, he didn't even yet know who I was. I mean, we'd talked, but he didn't know me. And my moment came for about a minute, and I jumped in and I said, Dr. Bright, I've been thinking about you, and I wanted to share this with you. And again, it caught his attention. He said, I like that. I said, well, I'll write it down. I'll give it to Ron. Probably for, I don't know, a year and a half, I was able to get into half a dozen times where I just had that little slice of a minute to add value to Dr. Bright. But my highlight was one day Ron and I were having a lunch, and he was talking about the fact Dr. Bright was going to go to Korea. And he looked at me and he said to Ron, Ron, could you get John Maxwell to come with us? And I remember how my heart leaped, and I thought, wow, I get to go to Korea with Bill Bright. Can you see if John Maxwell can go with us? Now here's the point I want you to catch. Not that I went to Korea with Bill Bright. I became a very, very close friend of his. In fact, when he passed away, I was one of 6 people that officiated at his funeral. But here's what I don't want you to miss in this teaching. When you want to be around great people, or you want to surround yourself with somebody that you just look up to, ask yourself, what can I do for them that they can't do for themselves? And spend a lot of time in prepping. You spend a lot of time prepping maybe for that 35 seconds, but at that moment you slip it into them and perhaps it catches their attention. And I just think that is absolutely a way for you to begin to surround yourself with great people. Always be in a servant's posture, but ask yourself, what can I do for them they can't do for themselves? Get unforgettable. It will be absolutely life-changing for you. Number 5, live out your great vision. Now, a vision itself can be inspiring. You cast a vision to be what's something you want to accomplish, and if it's a great vision, there are people that just get attracted to it. But what I'm saying, in surrounding yourself with great people, your talk won't get you that audience. It's your walk that'll get you that audience. You got to live this out. I didn't just say a great vision. I said live it out. In other words, become what I call a show and tell person. Remember when we were in elementary school and we'd do show and tell, and once a month we'd bring something to the classroom and we'd show it to the other class members and we'd tell a story about it, show and tell. How much fun was that? Well, in vision casting, telling is not enough. You have to also show it. Again, back to my mentor, John Wooden. He would look at his basketball players and he would say to them, don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do. So I thought about our time today in this best advice lesson. And I thought I want to maybe be real practical here and talk to you about vision maturity. How do you and I mature a vision in such a way that it's more than tell, it's show and tell? And how does it progress to a place that it gets the attention of great people? Because again, talk is cheap. You can talk about your dream and what you're going to accomplish. To be honest with you, doesn't mean much. But when you begin to live it out and people can say, oh my gosh, look at that. They are fulfilling their own dream. Now, all of a sudden, you're contagious. So let me just give you just a few steps of what I call vision maturity. First of all, it begins with you. In the beginning, the vision is about you. It really is. When I started off on my vision, it was about me, and I had a dream, and I kind of looked for people to add value to me, come around me, and it's okay. This is where it starts. Once in a while, the vision is about someone else, but most of the visions that we try to aspire to, they're about ourselves. And then now we're talking about how does this vision mature? So it starts with me, and so then I began to have goals, numerical goals. I would call them markers, things that mark my progress in this vision journey, maturity that I'm taking. And by the way, remember, they're markers; they're not makers. A lot of people think goals are makers of their lives. Goals don't make you; they just mark you. They're there to help you gauge your progress. Now, with the vision matures, it goes from it's about me, and I've got some goals that I want to accomplish, and very quickly it begins to be about others. It was Kouzes and Posner who said, great visions, they become great because they go from me to we. And there's no maturity in a vision that just has me to it. It has to have we to it. It has to be inclusive. It has to be about you and about me. And all of a sudden, I'm asking you to come and make my vision a reality. And you're helping me, and you're adding value to me. So it starts with me, and then we kind of put some goals, markers out there. Then we begin to bring others around us. And then we begin to ask the real question. We've got this vision to make a difference. We begin to ask questions, and one of the key questions in vision maturity is, what do others need in their life, or what do other people want in their life? Now, once we start asking that question and we get intentional in finding out what people need and what people want, this vision has a chance of really maturing and blossoming. And then once you start to answer that question, the next part of your maturity is and I never heard anybody talk about this. In fact, when I was working about it on this lesson, I honestly thought I need to develop this more than what I've developed it here, because I've never shared this thought with me, so it's with anyone, so it's fresh. But the best way I can say this is, put your vision in a vehicle. In other words, how do I move my vision from where it is to where I really want it to go? And in my life, when I realized that I wanted to add value to leaders, to multiply value to others, I said, well, okay, what's my vehicle? How am I going to move that vision? And that I started with conferences. I started to speak about leadership and do leadership conferences. And then I said, well, I'm going to write books about it. And so that can get out. And then I said, I'm going to start developing organizations. I have 7 companies, but I'm not really a business person. I didn't try to start companies. I just had to have companies that would help me implement the vision that I had. I needed resources and I needed people. Then I said, well, let's bring in people and make them the legs of the legacy. And when that vision matures and you put it in a vehicle, it should begin to be a vision of attraction, but it should always be a vision of participation. And you never know the validity of your vision until you ask for commitment. I tell leaders all the time, when you have people say, well, I'm with you, you don't know if they're really with you until you ask for commitment. Now, the moment you ask for commitment, then all of a sudden, you can find out the people that are going to help you to implement this vision and mature it to the process that it needs to be. So far on surrounding yourself with greater people, be unforgettable. Be unforgettable to great people. Catch their time and attention. Wait for your moment, but be prepared when that moment comes. And then live out the great vision. Don't just talk about it, do it. And number 6, and this one's absolutely huge, be greater on the inside than you are on the outside. In other words, have bigness of spirit. Now, how do I describe bigness of spirit? It's all about thinking of others. It's all about attitude. It's all about generosity. On July 4th last year, during COVID, my father died. He didn't die with COVID, but he passed away. He was 98 years of age. And my father, in fact, because of COVID, we had a few, not many, maybe 100 people come to the service, but we had over 100,000 watch online. And my father, his greatness was in his spirit. He was generous. He was kind. He was loving. He was embracing. He was inclusive. When you were around my dad, you just felt bigger. You just did. Big people make you feel bigger, just like, to be honest with you, small people make you feel smaller. And he had this greatness within him that just poured out of him. And when you are around him, you just understood. The best way I can explain it is, I've told you before, and I've used this as an illustration of John Wooden, my first mentoring experience with him in LA, when I left his apartment and I was walking out to my car into this kind of public parking spot for people that were visiting anyone in the complex that John Wooden lived. And I was about to the car, and it's just about ready to open the door, and I had this feeling, I turned around, and when I turned around, I looked up on the second floor where he lived, and there he was standing on the balcony, just watching me leave. We'd spent several hours together, and as soon as I turned to him, he smiled, that big, beautiful John Wooden smile, and he gave me that wave. It was the wave. It was the, John, you're so important to me that I think I'll just wait until you get in the car before I go back in the house. Oh, by the way, thanks for coming. Let me wave to you. That's what I'm talking about. In the 21 Laws of Leadership, I talk about the Law of Magnetism, which basically says who you are is who you attract. I talk about the Law of Buy-in, which basically says people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. I'm talking about having a greatness within you. I'm talking about Truett Cathy, that in the earlier days of Chick-fil-A, when they were beginning to be successful, and there were a lot around him who were saying, we need to become bigger, and we need to become bigger. And Truett Cathy said, no, we need to become better. If we're truly better, the customer will demand that we become bigger. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having good values on the inside. Values that transcend gifts and abilities. In my book, Change Your World, I talk a lot about values and that an empty bag that can't stand up straight. You put an empty bag out in your yard, and any kind of gentle breeze, and it just falls. And if any kind of breeze, it literally is scattered. It's moved. And so I'm talking about a spirit of generosity, abundance more than scarcity, high road instead of low road. We talk about the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated, but there's a high road that's even higher than the golden rule. It's the platinum rule that says treat others better than you're treated. Go that second mile. I seldom do this, but I'm going to give you one verse out of the Bible. I'm a person of faith, but I don't do this much with you. But you're going to understand it, and if I do it, you're going to understand why I did it. But Paul is talking to the people that lived in Galatia. And he said, the fruit produced by the Holy Spirit within you. Now, this is the being greater in the inside than you're on the outside. Now, he's talking about the fruit that is within you. He said, this fruit that within you is divine love, and it comes out in different expressions. In other words, he said, let me give you the expressions of divine love that comes from within you that begins to be very attractive to people. And he begins to illustrate what divine inward love means when it is transferred to people on the outside. It's joy that overflows, and peace that subdues, and patience that endures, and kindness in action, faith that prevails, gentleness of spirit, strength of spirit. And he said, never set the law above these qualities, for they are meant to be limitless. He said, don't try to put the law on them. Don't burden them down with legalism. Let them flow from the spirit of a person. Wow. When we're thinking about that best advice is surround yourself with great people. At the end of the year, every year, I do a review of every day of the year, and I ask myself, one of the questions I ask myself is, who did I spend my time with? And every year I say, wow, I need to spend more time with that person. Why? Because they have this bigness of spirit. There are other people I say, well, maybe I need to cut a little bit of my time with them. And so this lesson was meant to just help you, have an inward spirit that is attractive to others, that will help you to be unforgettable. This was a lesson that just helps you. If you'll do these 6 things that I gave you, great people will want to be around you. You'll not only want to be around them, but to be honest with you, they'll begin to seek you out. On our John Maxwell team, one of the things I do is I bring great people to our coaches. If you come to Orlando, you're going to have 3 days of seeing, meeting, and listening to great leaders. And that's usually the first step for people that become John Maxwell team coaches, is they spend a couple, 3 days with us. And I shared with you in the previous Monday with Maxwell lesson how one of the real keys to success of that conference is that we put you at a table of 10, and there at that table you surround yourself with other people like-minded like that. Well, Andrew and his wife Heather are in the studio with me today, and it's a delight to have Heather. Andrew's always with me. I mean, this is his studio. He's truly the man. I just come into the studio, and he is so good. He's so professional. He has everything set up for me. All I have to do is teach, and I just love him and Heather. But they heard me talk about in the last Monday with Maxwell, they heard me talk about how that, when you come and become a John Maxwell team coach, you meet people like you. And one of the things that's so important, I mean, haven't we all been discouraged by people that weren't like us and didn't have the passion to make a difference? And every time we would talk about doing something great, they would kind of pull us down and dumb us down and kind of just pull the air out of us. Well, when you come to the John Maxwell team, you're surrounded with people who want to be great also, who really want to make a difference. And here's what was interesting in our conversation before I did this lesson. Heather and Andrew were talking to me, and they said, they're both John Maxwell team coaches. And they said, our best friends have come out of the coaching company. The people that we associate with the most are John Maxwell team coaches. And we had a brief but a wonderful conversation about the fact that it's wonderful to have good friends that are doing good things. And sometimes we look and say, wow, I just need to have some friends that maybe think a little bigger, want to climb a little higher, want to really do a little bit more than what I'm surrounded with now. And if that's the case, if you're looking for great friends that can pretty well assure you of a great future, I want you to go to mondayswithmaxwell.com. And the reason I want you to go to mondayswithmaxwell.com is there's somebody waiting for you to touch base with them. And when you do, they're going to answer your questions. You've got a lot of questions about the John Maxwell team before you decide whether to be a part of it or not. Maybe you've been kind of watching Mondays with Maxwell and kind of saying, maybe I ought to check out the John Maxwell team, but you just haven't. I got it. We put things off. Don't today. Go to mondayswithmaxwell.com. If you want to surround yourself with great people, if you want to develop friendships with people that are like-minded, if you want to be with people that are truly making a difference, if you want to make friends with people that you'll be friends with forever and perhaps network and even maybe sometime build a business with them, if that describes you, go to mondayswithmaxwell.com. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. Thanks for being with me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's Monday with Maxwell lessons. What's some good advice or some unadvice you've received? Let us know in the comments. Thank you again for watching today. We'll see you next week for another episode of Mondays with Maxwell.